Cloud. Okay.
It's 7 o'clock.
Perfect. Welcome, everybody, to the October edition of Genre Tales. And this is for the spooky and scary category, which I have to say is my favorite. I am really pleased to be your MC tonight. And I love a good, scary story. I think there is something so pure about a scary story, especially when it really scares your pants off. It's tension in its most pure form, I think. And so I'm counting on the fact that we have some pretty scary stories tonight. I know we have a roster of great tellers for you. My name is Brandon Spars, and I am a board member of the Storytelling Association of California. And of course, we are using SAC's, that's what we call ourselves, SAC's platform tonight. And if you want any information about SAC, there is a website you can go to. And of course, membership takes you into an event like this for free and many, many other great things. But let's get into some of our scary stories. The first one is going to be told by a man whose name is Eddie Spaghetti. Now that is scary enough, right? But Ed Lewis is a board member at SAC as well. He is also a liaison to the National Storytelling Network for this region, the West Coast and California. And he has been a lifelong educator of children. And that's how he got the name Eddie Spaghetti, telling stories for young people. He went under the telling name of Eddie Spaghetti. That's not his name tonight, though. His name tonight is Screamin' Ed. That's his Halloween code name. And he developed his repertoire of stories out in his backyard in a tent with 4 other boys, scaring each other half to death all night long. Now, Ed, I didn't get an answer to your question. I'm going to be asking each teller this question. Actually, I know the answers to for most of the tellers. They sent them in. What is your favorite Halloween candy?
Reese's peanut butter cups.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Please welcome to the Genre Tales stage, Ed Lewis. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that great introduction, Brandon. The hags are coming. The hags are coming. They will be here soon. It was a typical day on Lopez Island for the Gang of Three in 1955. Now, Lopez Island is part of the San Juan Island chain in Washington State, just below the Canadian border in Vancouver Island, Victoria. The Gang of Three met every day down at McKay Harbor, and we got in our rowboat and we headed out to check the crab pots. Ralph the Runt, who was only 9 and the smallest and weakest of us, rode in the harbor where the water was very calm. As soon as we hit the open water, though, Big Mike, who was the strongest 11-year-old on the entire island, took those oars and he powered his way out to our crab pots. When we got to those crab pots, I, the greatest balancer on Lopez Island, in fact, probably all the San Juan Islands, got up on the bow of that boat while it was rocking back and forth, and I hauled in those crab pots. We had set out 5 crab pots, and by the end of that morning, we had 10 good-sized Dungeness crabs, which we took back to my mom, who made the best crab dip, crab cakes, and crab stew, and we had a nice feast. As soon as the feast was over, we all headed down to Agate Beach, which is where we had our fort. Now, our fort wasn't quite built, and we had to finish it because it was Halloween day. And that night, we knew we had to protect ourselves from the hag of Lopez Island. So we finished off the roof. We got some driftwood, finished off that roof. We walked over into the forest, got some bags of leaves and pine needles, and we brought them into our makeshift fort. We set them down for our bedding, and we put our sleeping bags on that. We got some more driftwood and planks of wood, and we built ourselves 3 nightstands because our older brothers had told us that if you ever happen to see a hag, this is what you have to do to protect yourself. You've got to get your finest shoes and you've got to polish them and then put them right at the foot of your bed. Then you have to take those paper matches and you have to fold them up and you put 2 behind each ear. Then you take your pocket knife, you open it up and you lay it on your nightstand. Just in case the hag gets through, the best deterrent possible. And that is an open Bible that you set right at the doorway, the entrance to wherever you happen to be sleeping. Because what happens is the hag, if she does happen to come through, will come in and has to read that Bible. And when she reads that Bible, if she's not done by the time the sun starts to rise in the morning, she will dissolve into the earth. So we were all prepared. We had a great afternoon of skipping rocks and roasting marshmallows. And of course, that night we went out trick-or-treating with everybody. And then we got ready because we were the only ones on the island that knew the truth about the hag. We knew that the hag was our teacher, our first grade teacher in our one-room schoolhouse. We knew it was her. Nobody else did. We just knew it, and we were going to prove it that night. So we ran up to the graveyard because we knew that right at midnight, if there was a hag, they would come to that graveyard. So Ralphie Runt, Big Mike, went to the caretaker's shed. And I, Eddie Spaghetti, the meatballs are ready, ran full speed over to the teacher's house. And I went down by her little pond underneath a willow tree where I could hide and watch for her to come out. At precisely 11:30, she came outside and she slowly peeled off all of her skin and she laid it over her railing. And with creaking bones, she started moving down her pathway. And the blood was dripping and bits of flesh were flaking off. And she kept going. And as soon as she got out her gate and over the little hill, I ran up to her skin and took the bag of salt that I had and I rubbed it all through the skin. And then I came back and I took off running. You know, I was a pretty fast runner, being the best balancer. And I ran as fast as I could. And I got up to that gravesite, up to the shed where we were hiding out. And in she came right at midnight, creaking, singing that song. If you want to sing it along with me, go ahead. The hags are coming, the hags are coming, they will be here soon. Well, she came in and she did what all hags do. And remember this in case you happen to see one. She came right to the gravesite. Now, the first gravesite had some flowers on it. And of course, she couldn't go into that gravesite because if you put anything on a person's gravesite, a memento, a picture, a flower, she can't go into them. So she moved around. Now this gravesite, this graveyard on Lopez Island has graves that go back to the 1800s. There's about 200 grave sites on this small island. So she moved to one that was bare. And she stood there singing that song. And as she did, she dissolved down into the grave and did what all hags do. She sucked up the soul of the person that had been down there. And then she moved throughout that evening as we watched her go to a grave, sing that song, and dissolve down into the earth and sucked out the soul of the person there. Well, a couple hours later, she came out, apparently was satisfied singing her song. She clanked her way down through the gate and back towards her house with her bones rattling and the blood just seeping. Now, we ran again as fast as we could, and we got to that willow tree and we watched what had happened. She came up to that porch, she took her skin and she started to put it over her head, her entire body, and then she let out an inhuman screech, and she dissolved right into the ground from all that salt that was entering her body. Well, the next day, we went to school, and people were wondering, what happened to Miss Viola Swamp, our teacher? She didn't show up. She didn't show up the next day. And people were wondering what had happened. And most people think, and they think that to this day, that she was walking up along the cliffs and she must have fallen off and fallen down into Puget Sound there. And the orcapods that live there probably took her away to their lair, where she may still be. But the gang of three knows the true story. And now you know the true story. So please sing along with me. The hags are coming. The hags are coming. They will be here soon. The hag of Lopez Island.
Thank you. That was by Ed Crabcakes Lewis. A new name. Now, Ed, you took us on a crab boat to your house, to the beach, to a graveyard. And I thought we were headed to a swamp because of the name of the hag. We didn't make it there, though. And I think the scariest part of that story was the idea of reading a Bible all in one night. Thank you, everybody, or thank you, Ed. I'm
You're
sure
welcome.
everyone appreciated that story.
Thank
Wonderful. Well, our next teller hails from the Sacramento Storytellers Guild. She is steeped in the Caribbean oral storytelling tradition. She combines music, movement, and poetry with storytelling. She does public and private events. And her favorite candy, well, Angela James doesn't play favorites. Please welcome to the Genre Tales stage, Angela James. Welcome.
And thank you. And as far as the candy goes, I'll eat anything with sugar, just anything. So I wasn't brought up in Halloween. So one type of candy is just as good as the other. But I'm from the island of Trinidad, as in Trinidad and Tobago. And this day, it was All Souls Day. Now, All Souls Day is a strange day. It's a combination of Celtic tradition, the Romans and Christianity, Amerindian, and a good dose of the stuff from Africa. It's a day that people use to celebrate the lives of those gone past them, of their dearly departed. So it's festive. It's not scary. It's not ghouls and goblins out in the dark of night. It's a fun thing. We would all go down to the cemetery or the graveyard, depending on where it was, a couple of days before. We would clean the graves. We would plant little flowers and everything. And on the day, All Souls Day, all of us, the entire family, sometimes together with other families, trekked down there. We walked. It was so much fun. Well, it was All Souls Day. And I was walking the 2 miles to the graveyard with friends and some family. Now, I wasn't walking with all the kids who were cavorting and carrying on as we went down the street. I was walking with the adults very steadily, and not because I was 12 years old. I just wanted to be with those other kids. But that day, that All Souls Day, my grandmother, who was a midwife, was called to deliver a baby. Somebody very inconveniently decided to have their baby on that day. And because it was a difficult birth, she took my mother with her. So I, as a 12-year-old, was given the task of doing the rituals at the gravesite. Now, this was nothing scary, festive. So we all walked there and we got to the graveyard. It was still light. My siblings, they helped me do some of the necessary things. For instance, we spread a nice white tablecloth over the grave and we weighted down the corners with pebbles. We arranged the candles around the edge of the tablecloth and we would light them later. We laid the stuff on the grave. We had fried chicken, a fried chicken drumstick, because Pappy loved fried chicken. We had a jar of peanut butter because Pappy loved peanut butter. And of course, he liked his rum, so we had a bottle of rum. But after all these things were laid, everybody took off and I was left there all by myself. Well, I still had things to do. I had to say the rosary. I started Hail Mary, but by the time I got the second time around, it was Hail Mary, full of grace. Speeded it up. Dusk came. I lit all the candles and I sat there contemplating, wishing I could be on the other side of the graveyard with all my friends, playing among the graves, visiting friends, buying popsicles and from the vendors, listening to the music, doing all of the fun things. But I was entrusted with this task and I took it very seriously. Nighttime fell and I lit the candles and I sat there, the flickering candles. I did have the foresight to bring a book. So I was reading this book and by candlelight. And I got a little hungry. And I looked at that chicken drumstick, that fried chicken drumstick, and I think, Pappy won't miss this if I eat it. And besides, if I eat it, he's already going to get all the nutrition from it. So I took that chicken leg and I took one bite and I laid it back there. And then it tasted pretty good. I had fried it myself. I just ate the whole thing in no time. Oh, I look around again since the chicken leg was fine and nothing happened to me. The heavens didn't open up. Let's try some peanut butter. I got the jar of peanut butter, twisted off the lid, and dug my fingers in it because forgotten to take a spoon, and the biggest glob of peanut butter just went into my mouth. Well, you know what happens when you try to swallow a glob of peanut butter. So there I was. Ooh, it was terrible, choking and everything. I needed something to wash it down. Didn't have any water. There's a bottle of rum. I uncorked that bottle and I took a swig of that rum. It was terrible. It was bad. It was really terrible. After I coughed and I spluttered and everything else, but it did get the peanut butter down. I'm like, well, couldn't be too bad. It didn't kill me. So I had a little bit more peanut butter and I had a little bit more rum. And by the end of the night, I don't know how long I was there, I had eaten that entire jar of peanut butter and drank that entire bottle of rum. I will say I couldn't read anymore. My eyes were woozy. I looked, all the candle lights seemed to flicker like little Christmas lights. The clouds, I couldn't tell where was heaven and I couldn't tell where I was earth. And then my stomach was feeling pretty bad. Well, I sat down on the edge of that grave, just feeling really rotten. And then I looked, and that white tablecloth on the grave seemed to move a little bit. It could have been the wind, but I couldn't tell. And it moved. And then it started to tremble. And then the earth beneath it started to move. And the clouds and the dust and everything roiled around. And oh, from the middle of that grave, through the white tablecloth, there is a hand that came up through the dirt and the dust, and it came up and up and up and up, and it seemed to be reaching out to me. I heard a scream. I don't know if it was mine, but it seemed to come from all around me. It came from the grave. It came from behind me. It came from the side. It came from over on the fence where all the kids were playing. There was this scream and it didn't stop. And the scream continued and scream, 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 and it continued. And thankfully, when that hand reached out and it was about ready to grab me, I think I fainted. That was all I knew of that night. I woke up in my own bed the next day, feeling so sick. I was told that I was screaming so loudly about Pappy coming to get me that everybody in that graveyard came running over there. And when they found me, I was groveling on the grave and I was drunker than a skunk. They got me home. But to this day, I have the distinction, I have the honor, I have the recognition of being the person closest to Pappy, because on that All Souls Day, I and only I saw Pappy's hand.
Wow. Now you said you weren't going to tell us a very scary story. I thought that was incredibly scary. Angela, that's like a real encounter. That was
Well, yeah, of the close kind, but you know, but the whole point is All Souls Day, as the Mexicans do, Dia
yeah,
de los Muertos. It's not. It's a happy time.
yeah,
It's a happy
right.
time of remembrance.
But that was a very scary story. And you answered the question what your favorite Halloween treat is. It's peanut butter and rum, of course. That was wonderful. And the Sacramento Storytellers Guild swap is so lucky they get to hear you regularly. That was really riveting. Thank you so much, Angela, for
My
your
pleasure.
story.
Mhm.
It was wonderful. Well, our next teller belongs to the Mother Lode Storytelling Guild. She's been telling for 40 years, and she had an after-school storytelling club. But of course, when the pandemic hit, that had to be put on hold. Hopefully, it will come back. And she's been part of Epic Day for 11 years. And that is a wonderful tradition. Her favorite candy, I think this will probably resonate with a lot of people here tonight, caramel popcorn balls. Please welcome to the Genre Tales stage, Kathy Martinez.
Hello. To the story I'm going to tell you today, again, is like a true story. The first time it happened, I was 12 years old. I was laying in bed. I shared the bedroom with my 3 other sisters. We were in bunk beds. And I woke up in the middle of the night. It was pitch black. And I got the feeling that I wasn't alone. My 3 sisters were there, but this was different. This was a weird feeling. I never had it before in my life, and I got scared. I didn't know why I was so scared. This feeling of someone watching you. You know what I mean? It was terrifying. And then I heard my dog Susie walking down the hall, her nails hitting the linoleum floor. And then I heard my dad snoring. And I thought, I'm okay. I'll be okay. I'm safe. The next time it happened, I was 15 years old. And I was madly in love with Miles Honecker. Oh my God, Miles Honecker. He was a little surfer. He had blonde hair. And I really, really liked him. At the time, my sister Diane and her son Matt was living with us. Now Matt had to be between 2, 3 years old. And we could hear him. We were all in the kitchen and living room. We could hear him laughing like crazy in the master bedroom, which is where my bedroom is. Because remember, my 3 sisters share the master bedroom. I should tell you also that the master bedroom had a connecting bathroom. And for some reason, I don't know why, no one used the hall bathroom, which is right down the hall. Instead, they would cut through our bedroom and use the back bathroom, which is what we called the back bathroom. Well, we heard Maddie laughing, and we thought, well, who's he laughing with? We couldn't figure out why a little kid like that would be laughing, and really hard, gut level laughing. So my sister Diane and I went back there, opened the door, and which is the door actually never closed. It never really did close very well, so it was always ajar. And we pushed it open, and there was Matt. And we looked around the room, and we saw the bunk beds there, but we said, "What? Who are you laughing with?" He looked at us and he just kind of shrugged his shoulders and started giggling again. And then he ran out the room. Okay. The next time it happened, I was 16 years old. I'm still in the bunk bed. And this time I was on the top bunk because my sisters moved out. So it was just me and my little sister. And at the time, I was 16. I was madly in love with Stephen Garavito. Oh my God, Stephen Garavito. Whoa, he was tall. He was good looking. He was smart. Wow, he was really smart. He was funny, neat guy. And for Christmas that year, he gave me a teddy bear. And I would sleep with it at night and hug it. Me, my top bunk, I would be hugging my teddy bear. Well, one night I woke up with that same feeling that I had when I was 12. I'm 16 now. And the feeling of fear or someone is in the room with me. What Jessie was, my sister was just in the next bunk and it wasn't her. And Susie died and Daddy wasn't home at the time. And I'm laying there thinking, what is going on? And I'm looking straight up at the ceiling because I'm on the top bunk. And I'm feeling this feeling. And I turned my head to the right. Right there. Right there was the head and shoulders of a little boy. Curly hair, silvery, young, can be maybe 5, 6 years old. And he was looking straight. And I was looking at him. And he slowly turned his head to look at me. While he was turning his head to look at me, I turned my head and I grabbed hold of Garavito, my bear. I sunk my head into that bear and I woke up the next morning in the same position. I was so scared. The next time it happened, it was Dave Stryker. Oh my God, Dave Stryker was so nice. He was kind. He had a little pimply problem with me. I didn't care. He was going to a different school, and but I really liked him a lot. And at the time, I was all alone in the house. My sister, and her mat was gone. For some reason, Mom was at work. My sisters were. I was alone in the house, and for some odd reason, Lord knows why, I decided to wash our bedroom floor. It was just tile. And I decided to wash the floor. Now you have to understand that it was tile and the bunk beds were on the east side and across the top was a row of windows from wall end to wall end, but they're only like, I don't know, 2 feet tall that ran the span of the width of the room going to the bathroom. And I needed to go to the bathroom. The floor was wet. I needed to go to the bathroom, but I didn't want to go down the hallway because no one used the hall bathroom. So I was going to wait until the floor was dry so I can use the bathroom, the back bathroom. Well, I'm sitting there. I'm sat down in the doorway. It was carpeted in the hallway, but linoleum in the bedroom. And I'm sitting there going, what? Oh, gotta go to the bathroom. Well, the phone rings. I get up and I go answer the phone. It was David. He said he's coming over that night. We're gonna go have pizza and go to a movie. And I'm going, oh, fun. Well, I hung up. We were only on the phone for maybe 10 minutes, maybe. And I went back and I sat back down on the door jamb, waiting for the floor to dry. And I look in the floor, and I stared at the floor, and what? And I got up. I said, Maddie, are you here, Maddie? Because in the floor there were footprints. You know how you walk on a wet floor and you leave little footprints? There was footprints coming out of the back bathroom, making a circle, going all the way back to the back bathroom. And I got up. I said, come on, Matt, you're here. And I realized, no, I was alone in the house. And I got the horrible feeling again. The next time it happened, I was 19 years old. I was madly in love with Michael Moore. Oh my God. Michael Moore was tall. He was smart. He had the most gorgeous voice you ever want to hear. I mean, it was beautiful. Oh, geez. It was so good. Well, Michael and my three big brawny cousins, David, Carl, and Ronnie, were at the house. Parents were gone. We were always like on a Friday night or something, and we're all sitting there in the living room watching television, drinking coffee and just hanging out. And Michael said he needed to go to the bathroom. And we said, okay, well, don't go down the hall, go to the back bathroom, cut through the bedroom and go to the back bathroom. No one uses the hall bathroom. So we're all sitting there, hanging out and stuff. Michael comes back. And the look on his face was different. He kind of laughs and goes, you know what just happened to me back there? And we go, what? And he goes, well, he had just washing his hands. He finished doing his business. He turned to the sink to wash his hands. And in that back bathroom was a huge mirror that ran the span of the mirror, the wall. He said he was in there washing his hands. And in the mirror to the below him was this little kid with curly blonde hair. He had plaid shirt on. He was about 4 or 5 years old. He was combing his hair and he looked in the mirror and he saw it and he turned around and he looked down and he was gone. So he goes walking out of the bathroom and told us this. My sister Diane and looked at one another and he said, well, I said, well, the first time it happened, I was 12 years old. Thank you so much.
Whoa, Kathy, that was really creepy.
Good.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, my daughter, hey, we tell my daughter when she was little, she had to go spend the night in the bedroom.
Yeah, they're not going to go visit. Miles the Surfer, Stephen Garavino,
Oh,
Stay Stryker.
David.
Oh, David Stryker, and Michael Moore.
Right.
Wow, you can measure your childhood in your crushes, can't you?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that very, very creepy story. And I can't believe you decided to wash a floor just for the heck of it. But that sure gave the ghost an opportunity to scare your pants off.
Oh, he did.
Thank you so much, Kathy. That was Kathy Martinez, everybody. I just want to quickly acknowledge we have the chair of the Storytelling Association of California with us, Sarah Armstrong. And we also have another board member in the audience, and that's Stephen Shagrin, and he goes by the name Shags. And we're glad to have them here as well. Well, our next teller, sponsored by the Delta Word Weavers. She started just a couple years ago in 2017, just after retiring, with the Stage Bridge organization. She took some classes, but you have certainly been making up for lost time because you've been performing at Better Said Than Done, 6 Feet Apart Productions, the Oakland Story Slam, the Moth at the Freight and Salvage. That's a stage that's in front of about 600 people. That'll get your heart pounding. And of course, with the Orinda Tail Spinners, the Delta Word Weavers, Silk Road, and the Marsh Theater. Claire likes to tell true personal stories, a la The Moth, I suppose, right? And she has a few stories of the Lou Garou legends. And those are from Arcadia. He lived in Arcadia and migrated to Louisiana. These are where the stories were from and their path they took.
Diaspora, yeah.
Diaspora. And her work career was in technology at Fortune 500 companies. Favorite Halloween candy? Good one. homemade caramel apples, minus the razor blades. Please welcome to the Genre Tales stage, Claire Castell.
Well, thank you. And that was a great story, Kathy. It's always tough to follow such a great teller. My story is called The Chapel of the Chimes. Now, at the end of Piedmont Avenue in Oakland, there are two beautiful final resting places. One is the Mountain View Cemetery, and it's 226 acres of beautifully landscaped rolling hills, and it's designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, who designed Central Park. I happen to love walking in cemeteries, and this one in particular, which some people find is creepy. But Mountain View Cemetery has some really famous occupants. We've got the Folgers, the Crockers, the Ghirardellis, and famous victims of murder, like the Black Dahlia. And the other beautiful resting place is the Chapel of the Chimes Columbarium. And that's where my father and his parents' ashes are interred. Now, when I go walking in Mountain View Cemetery, I usually stop at the Columbarium after my walks to leave flowers in my father's niche. And, you know, it's a beautiful place, tranquil gardens, cloisters, alcoves, and it's all designed by Julia Morgan. Well, one day, a couple of years ago, I set out to go out on a walk in the cemetery, and it was fall like now, and it was sunny though, not raining like today. And as I headed into the cemetery, I had to drive past the columbarium. And I noticed that there was a funeral going on at the Chapel of the Chimes. And, you know, I really hoped it would be over when I got back, because I didn't want a bunch of people around. I went ahead and I drove in the driveway to the Mountain View, and I parked and I walked a while. And as I do, I like to explore different places, and I look at names and dates, and, you know, finding the little headstones with a lamb, which means a child died there. Now, that day there wasn't very many visitors, but not far from where I was exploring, there was a young woman with long brown hair tied up in a ponytail, sitting under a tree. She's in her early 20s, and she's dressed in black bike shorts and a flamingo pink jersey. Now, some of you know me. I'm kind of a person who strikes up conversations easily. And I was about to go over there and chat her up. But I noticed that she was staring at her lap. She was leaning against the tree. I thought, oh, she's kind of serious. You know, maybe she's grieving for somebody. This is a cemetery. So I finished my walk and I didn't bother her. Now, before I go to the columbarium, I needed to get some flowers for my father's niche. So I walked to the corner florist shop where I bought some marigolds, and I was really happy with these bright orange marigolds. And I stepped out in the crosswalk to cross the other street, and a black sedan ran a red light and came careening down the road and nearly hit me. I couldn't see the driver. I said some words I can't say here. So I caught my breath. I guess I'm alive. I walked back to the columbarium and I saw that the funeral was over. It looks a little quiet. And so that was good. But I slipped up the stairs. There's one flight of stairs to the California room where my father is. So I zipped up there and with my marigolds. And there's a little place to prepare your flowers for the niches. And I was in there and I saw that same young woman. It was the same woman in the cemetery. She had long brown hair and a ponytail, black bike shorts, and a bright pink Jersey. Now she looked confused, staring and kind of, and now I feel like I really know her. So I go, oh, hi there. Are you lost? This place can be such a maze. It's easy to get turned around. Can I help you find something? At first she doesn't answer, but then she says, Haggerty. Haggerty. Oh, well, I haven't seen a Haggerty in this room. There's not many Irish here, but if you go down to the Garden of the Cross room, there's a lot of Irish families. You go up those little steps and see where the skylight is, turn left up there and you'll see some Irish families. So I took my marigolds to my father's niche and I assumed she went that way because she was gone. Now, after I sat there with my father for a few minutes and went downstairs and yep, the funeral was done. It was quiet. So I took a look around. Did I mention that this chapel is built by Julia Morgan? Okay, I love architecture and I wanted to peek in the chapel and to admire the architecture and the coffered ceilings. And I went in and there's still a lot of flowers and pictures set up on one wall, which seem to be friends and family of the dearly departed. Well, as I headed over to look at the pictures, a woman in her 50s stood up in a pew. And I hadn't seen her, so I was a little bit startled. And she walked over to me and we were looking at the pictures. I said, oh, I'm really sorry to have interrupted you. I didn't mean to intrude on your loss. I love this chapel and I was curious about the funeral here too. Do you mind me asking who died? The woman said, well, it was my daughter. It was a bicycle accident. Very close by, actually, right up there on the corner of Piedmont and where that florist shop is. A big black car hit her while she was bicycling and they never caught the person driving it. Now, I'm kind of creeped out now. She and I stepped closer to look at the pictures and I saw one that caught my eye. It was of a young woman with brown hair and a ponytail and bike shorts and pink jersey riding a bike. Who is that woman? Pointing to the picture. And the woman says, oh, that was my Janice, my daughter. Oh, well, I don't want to freak you out, but she looks just like a woman I saw up in the cemetery 45 minutes ago. And I saw again upstairs in the columbarium. She said, that's funny. You're the third person today to say they saw Janice. Well, it must be a coincidence. She's a lovely girl. Thank you for sharing this with me, Mrs. I didn't catch your name. Haggerty. I'm Mrs. Haggerty.
Wow, Claire. That was a beautiful story too. Such unity in it and beautiful images. And the black car, it was almost like the event was happening again too.
Yeah, it's a callback.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that story. Shags pointed out that in the chat to me that SAC has some events in some of the rooms right there at the Chapel of the Chimes. So look for those. It's apparently a very beautiful place. But thank you so much for your story, Claire.
You're welcome.
I'm going to be thinking of that.
And some of it's true.
I'm not going to ask which parts. Well, we're in for a treat. Our next storyteller comes from the Foothill Storytelling Guild. She resides in Marin County, the unceded lands of the Coast Miwoks of Marin, and performs throughout the Greater Bay Area, including tandem stories with Coast Miwok Tribal Council member Marin, Sky Road Webb. Alicia is the former education director for the Museum of the American Indians of Novato, California, where she provided Indigenous educational tours for over 10 years. A lively storyteller of interactive Indigenous tales of tricksters and shapeshifters, Alicia fully embraces the character, body movement, and spirit of the animal people. She has a talent for suiting her voice and physical movements to define and animate a variety of characters, projecting their different feelings and personalities. Her favorite Halloween candy is a story in itself. As a child, Hershey's chocolate was such a favorite that the mother of the family, Ever the educator, took them all to the Hershey's chocolate factory in Oakland, California. And Alicia still has her Hershey's bear, her Hershey's stuffed bear. However, as an adult, she now prefers organic cacao. Any day, anytime, sounds like all year long. Please welcome to the Genre Tales stage, Alicia Retes.
Thank you very much. You can all hear me, I hope. Great, thank you. I'm going to be telling you, first of all, my North American Indigenous roots are with the Yoremi, commonly known as Mayo, and the Yoemi, commonly known as Yaqui. But I am going to tell you a tale from the Hopi people. It comes from the Pueblo stories and storytellers that were collected by Mark Bahti, B-A-H-T-I. And our main character is Skeleton Man, Masao. And for the Hopi, he's a cultural hero. He's known as Skeleton Man, but he's also known as the Lord of the Dead, who teaches people to live a simple and sustainable life in harmony with nature. He also warns of the dangers in the world. And so he offers a bag of seeds, a gourd of water, a digging stick, and a cloak for warmth, thus demonstrating virtue in the art of agriculture. Now, there are aspects of Skeleton Men that are terrifying, but I don't go there. And he's considered mostly by most people to be a friend of humanity, someone who is trusted to take care of the Hopi people in the afterlife. He also has an earthly role as a trickster, much like Coyote. He chases women and he fumbles, makes mistakes, and so forth. I am holding in my hand a squash man who happens to be green, just like my green screen. So he'll appear rather ghost-like, and I can't do anything about that, but it might be effective. His body is wood, his head is gourd, and there are seeds. So when you rattle it, it shakes, which is a good thing because he is in charge of ensuring successful crops. And I soon hope to have a successful storytelling for you. Hi-ya, hi-ya, hey. Hi-ya, hi-ya, ha, hey. Hi-ya, hi-ya, ha, hey. Oh. in the before time, when time was not stuck in a clock, but time moved on the winds, announcing the changing of the seasons, caressing our skins, blowing cold, cool, warm, or hot. Time directed everyone and everything according to the changing of the seasons, winter, spring, summer, and fall. In this before time, everyone listened to the messages carried on the winds. For listening is loving, and this is when my story begins. Coyote Woman and Skeleton Man lived in the same neighborhood of the Hopi Nation, the peaceful people. Now, one day, Coyote Woman was out hunting. She'd been out all morning and it was getting late afternoon, and she still hadn't found any food for her 9 pups waiting for her in a den. And so she was pretty frustrated. So she decided she would sit down on the canyon wall and rescan the area. Well, when she did, she noticed Skeleton Man in the place where he usually dances. Being very curious, she went down closer to observe him. And shortly, Skeleton Man began to sing. It was the same song you heard, only a little bit more of a rattle. He sang, hey, hi-ya, hi-ya, hey, hi-ya, hi-ya, hey, hi-ya, hi-ya, hey. So he sang and he danced. Now, Skeleton Man does not have eyes. He's a skeleton, but he has eye sockets. And when he sings this song, his eyes pop out and they travel towards the south. These soft, wet eyeballs with cords dangling in the wind would continue to travel past the mesa, past the deserts, and into a canyon where there was a beautiful meadow. And the thing is, Skeleton Man would stand in his dance place and not move, but he saw everything that the eye saw, the abundance of game and rivers filled solidly with fish. Now, Coyote Woman knew about this because when he saw those things, he spoke about them. Fine fat deer here. Oh, very nice. Oh, look at that stream. Why, it's silver. There's so many fish. Yeah. Rabbits. Oh, haven't seen so many rabbits ever. Oh, great place. Well, Coyote Woman was salivating with both hunger and envy. She hadn't caught anything, and she just had to have this medicine. Now, she didn't want to like straight out ask him. She wanted to maybe flatter and out trick him or outsmart him to get it. So she came up to Skeleton and said, "Yes, Skeleton, what a beautiful song you have. Beautiful song you sang." The skeleton just nodded. "Oh, well, if I were to have that song sang with my beautiful voice, people, animal people, everybody would love to hear it." Skeleton Man just ignored her. "Well, I would be honored if you were to teach me that song. Besides, I know how to handle magic songs. Will you teach me?" And the Skeleton Man, being a friend to humanity and such, agreed. So he taught her the song, and she was quite eager to go and sing it. And she started to leave. But Skeleton Man waved at her and said, hold on. You must stand on the side of the arroyo and face the south and then sing. And when you want your eyes to come back, sing that song and they'll come back. Well, she was already on the side of the arroyo And she set herself up quite nicely and she sang the song and she danced, and lo and behold, the eyes popped out and they traveled. The Coyote Woman stayed in place and she saw
It's 8 o'clock.
all the places that Skeleton Man had saw and seen. And then the rabbits, and oh, she was so excited. She was moving around and watching and trying to memorize everything so she could go get that food for her cubs, her little pups. And then it got a little chilly, and so she decided that she could see the sun was setting, and so she decided she should call her eyes back and return to the pups. So she sang the song, and the eyes did not return. She got a little nervous, so she sang a little louder, and still the eyes did not return. She sang a third time, and the eyes did not pop back in. But she realized that she had moved around and wasn't facing the south, and surely the eyes would be at her feet. So she blindly felt her, only sure enough, there was a round, soft, wet with the cords, and she popped it into her one eye. And with that, she was able to look and find the other eye and popped them in. And but everything was yellow, very, very yellow. But she didn't have time to bother with it. She was concerned about getting back to her pups and figured it was probably just the light of the day, and scrambled off. Well, Skeleton had observed all of this, and he was laughing because Coyote Woman had picked up 2 yellow gourds and popped them into her eyes. And when she came back to her den and her pups saw her yellow, terrifying eyes, well, the pups screamed and they ran out of the den and they kept running. She went after them, but they never returned. And so it is that we have coyote everywhere in the lower 48 states. And if you should be out somewhere walking and you feel like someone is watching you, it may very well be the eyes of Coyote Woman that are still wandering out there. Story done. Thank you.
Wow, Alicia, thank you so much. When you lifted your hand up with the bones on it, that was chilling.
Oh, goody.
Yeah. I really like the line about many, many beautiful lines, but time being stuck in a clock. I like how you phrased that.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of the pre-time, right? That you were telling the story about. When
Yes.
time was not stuck in a clock, when eyeballs were not stuck in one's head either.
Yeah, that piece in the before time is that there's a longer version of that's growing. That's because I always hear stories, people say in the before time, and no one ever talks about, well, what was that time. And so I've been exploring that, and I have a sort of a lyrical poetic a piece that's developing around that. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Very much, Alicia. Thank you so much for your story tonight.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that very much.
Well, I joined a swap probably about 8 years ago. It's Santa Rosa. And one of the tellers that continues to capture my imagination and wow me with just this vast repertoire of both personal stories and folk tales is Sharon Elwell. And as I said, she's from the Do Tell swap, Santa Rosa. She taught music, Spanish, English as a second language, and every grade level that California schools have. She's the author of several memoirs, and that was the impetus for your storytelling, I believe. Is that right, Sharon? A lot of your stories come from the writing you do around your life and your memoirs. She loves to teach and channels that energy these days by helping others pursue their own writing. Favorite candy? Candy corn, but only when the chocolate runs out. Please welcome to the Genre Tales stage, Sharon Elwell.
Thank you, Brandon. Here's what happened. It was Halloween morning, and I had just sent Brad off to work and the kids off to school. And I had a few moments to myself. So I made some hot chocolate and warmed up a croissant. And then I looked over at my Halloween candy bowl and realized that there was not much left. In fact, it was pretty much down to Tootsie Pops and Jolly Ranchers. I had bought some good stuff earlier, but I had been sampling all week. And apparently I had sampled more than I knew. And as I was realizing I was going to have to make a run to the store before the trick-or-treaters showed up that night, I heard it. Now that's not a knock you have to get up and answer. That's a knock that just means your best friend is in the house. So I called out, "I'm in here, Eileen, come in the kitchen." And then suddenly it dawned on me, that couldn't be Eileen. Eileen was dead. Eileen had died weeks ago from complications of diabetes. I scrambled over myself to get into the living room, and there she was, my pudgy, cheery friend, looking just like herself. And I said, "I've never had a hallucination before. I wonder if it's the NyQuil. You look so real." And she said, "Dummy, that's because I am real. I am not a hallucination." "But you're dead." Well, yeah, I had noticed that myself. "Well, so shouldn't you be sitting on a cloud or playing a harp or whatever it is people, I mean, you did go up, didn't you?" And she said, "Oh, it's not the least bit like that. It's more like a couple of degrees to the right or left on your reality dial, and you're in a completely different plane of existence. You could see everything that goes on in the heavens if you knew the channel. Actually, Edison puts almost everything on YouTube that has any importance. And of course, we watch you." "You watch us?" "Yes, girlfriend, and let me tell you, watching someone sit with a pint of Ben and Jerry's and binge through 8 seasons of Orange is the New Black is not very inspiring. And that's why I'm here. I'm worried about you. Now, in just a little while, I'll be gone, and you're going to be visited by 3 spirits. Pay attention to what they tell you." And she was gone. When I heard it this time, I opened the door, and there stood a vision straight out of the 1980s. White go-go boots, a psychedelic tent dress, enormous hoop earrings, hair ratted up into a giant beehive and plastered in place with hairspray. I said, "Are you the ghost of Christmas past?" She said, "Wrong holiday, girlfriend. This is Halloween, but I am going to show you a glimpse of your past." And with that, I saw for myself my kitchen. It was dark. There was no light on. It was the middle of the night. I was standing in my bare feet at the kitchen counter, rifling through my son's trick-or-treat candy. when I heard a tiny voice behind me. Mom, what are you doing? Just checking your candy, son, to see if there's anything suspicious in here. Well, you did that when I brought it home. Well, yeah, but you can't be too careful, and I was just getting kind of nervous about it. He looked at the stack I had on the counter and he said, so the Hershey bars and the Mounds bars and the Heath bars and the peppermint patties are all suspicious? Well, maybe, son, but don't worry. You've got plenty of other candy left. And the vision dissipated. I felt terrible. I realized that I had lied to my own child. Well, the next knock brought a businesslike looking woman with a clipboard. And she said, number 287? Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, Carolyn Barker? I'm sorry I called you by your number. I've just seen so many women this morning, and it just has confused me a little bit. The last woman I spoke with rattled me some. She was so upset you'd think she'd never seen a ghost before. And I'm about to show you Halloween present. Well, it hasn't happened yet. We won't have trick-or-treats until tonight. And she said, through the magic of modern technology, I'll give you a glimpse of that. And there I was, in my witch costume, standing on the porch with my big pot of candy, handing out Jolly Ranchers and Tootsie Pops and a few Starburst to the children that came by, when my husband Brad came up behind me and looked over my shoulder and said, where's the good stuff? I said, well, I'm keeping it back for the older kids. They care more. And he said, keeping it back. Older kids. Where are you doing this keeping? Well, it could be on the fridge. I already looked on the fridge. Or how about the cupboard next to the fridge? I looked in the cupboard next to the fridge. Actually, I've looked in every cupboard in this house. And unless I miss my guess, you have eaten 2 pounds of Hershey's Nuggets in the last week, all by yourself. And he disappeared. I didn't want to open the door this time. And when I did, I didn't see anybody until I looked down. And there was a tiny woman, and she said, I'm the ghost of your Halloween future. And I said, oh no, Spirit, no, I don't want to see my future. I'm not going to. I refuse to look. And I covered my eyes. But you can only keep your eyes closed for so long. Sooner or later, you have to open up and look. And so I did. And there I was on the porch in my usual witch costume, handing out candy with Brad by my side. And I said, what? I don't weigh 500 pounds? No. My husband didn't divorce me? Of course not. This is not a story written by Dickens. The whole purpose of giving you this warning is so you'll change your ways. All you have to do, girl, is dial back a little bit on the sweets and be honest with your family, and you'll have many happy Halloweens to come. And I wish you many happy Halloweens too.
Oh, Sharon, you never, ever, ever disappoint. That was a wonderful story. You want to know something scary? NyQuil spelled backwards is Eileen.
Oh, I wish I'd known that. I could use
It
that.
isn't. But it sounds like it almost could be. There's no Q.
Eileen.
It's not even, but people might buy it for about 2 seconds. I love that the good stuff is the suspicious stuff, right? All the chocolate. That was wonderful. A wonderful blend of a Christmas story and our forthcoming holiday, Halloween. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you, Brandon.
We're down to our last teller of the evening. And now this teller speaks 12 different languages. And that includes, or it probably does not include music as a language. So I'm going to say 13 different languages. He spends his time between San Diego and Mexico City. He's collected folklore and strange stories from around the world, from the remote mountains of southern Mexico to the jungles of Peru, from Ireland's pubs all the way to Egypt's City of the Dead. And he's published a variety of books, short stories, articles in English and Spanish. And some of those include 3 Nights in the Clown Motel. Now that sounds like a scary story to me. A book of nonfiction horror, as well as the series Gone Viral, Urban Legends of the COVID-19 Pandemic. Well, I thought this person had the best Halloween treat, a nice cold bottle of pumpkin ale. Please welcome to the Genre Tales stage, David Schmidt.
No sé qué tienen las flores, llorona, las flores del Campo Santo. No sé qué tienen las flores, llorona, las flores del Campo Santo, que cuando las mueve el viento, llorona, parece que están llorando. Que cuando las mueve el viento, llorona, parece que están llorando. Ay, de mi llorona, llorona, llorona de azul celeste. Ay, de mi llorona, llorona de azul celeste, que la vida me cueste, llorona, no dejaré de quererte. Y aunque la vida me cueste, llorona, no dejaré de quererte. Now, this is an absolutely true story of a night that I spent in a haunted house in central Mexico. But it begins with a different kind of haunting. I was being haunted by a woman. This was 10 years ago. It was December. Christmas was coming up, and I was haunted by this woman. I thought she was the one. I could have sworn she'd been the one. Being with her, I felt everything that I had always heard in love songs and poems and in cheesy romantic movies. It all made sense to me when I was with her. She was the first person who ever inspired me to write really bad poetry. I'm not a poet, but I wrote really bad poems for her. Poems like, "Your eyes are two dark pools and I am drowning in them." Yeah, it was really bad. And then she dumped me. She broke up with me. And my life didn't make sense anymore. I couldn't even imagine where my life would go without her. And I went into a really dark depression. Christmas was coming up, and some dear friends of mine invited me to go with them on a road trip across Mexico to the central state of Guanajuato. They had family there. They were going to a wedding. They said, "David, we're going for Christmas. There's no sense in you sitting here in San Diego all alone, being depressed and just drinking too much by yourself. Come and drink too much with us instead." Much better idea. So I did. I went with them on this road trip, but I was just in a haze. I was numb. I wasn't feeling anything. It was all of us. We all packed into the van and we all drove down through Tijuana, across Baja, across Mexicali, and drove south through the states of Sonora and then Sinaloa. And we were I knew I was in a bad place when we were driving through Sinaloa. It's famous for a lot of the violence, unfortunately. And we're driving through Sinaloa, hearing news about the drug trafficking, the cartels, the narcos, and I was just sort of in this tequila haze, slumped against the window, and I was thinking, you know what? If I got taken by the cartels, screw it, I'll join them. I'll get Stockholm syndrome so quick. I'm gonna be the best narco they've ever had. That's how bad I was feeling. I just didn't care about anything. So we got to Guanajuato. We got to a little town where my friends had family. And we got there and we got to this little town called Manuel Doblado. It's in Guanajuato state, where this is a central state where every war that Mexico has had has gone through Guanajuato at some point. So there's been a lot of violence there, a lot of death, a lot of tragedy, and a lot of history. And we got there and we started dividing up who would sleep where in which house. And I was the odd man out. And they were saying, well, where's David going to sleep? And they started talking, and then cousin Angel, he and his wife, they were kind of laughing, and they said, "Oh, Angel said he could stay in my mom's house," and they laugh about it. And I said, what's so funny?" And Angel's wife, she said, "No, trust me, David, you don't want to stay in this house." "But why not?" "Allá espantan, David. That house is haunted. It's haunted. Angel and I, we tried to live there. We couldn't last a month in that house. I swear, David, every night something would happen. Every night we would hear scratching on the walls. We'd hear things moving around. We'd hear voices, see shadows. Sometimes we'd go into the kitchen the next morning. The furniture would be rearranged in the kitchen. You don't want to spend the night in this house." I said, "Dude, I definitely want to spend the night in this house now." See, this is what I do. I go to haunted places and I write about them. And when they told me about this haunted house, for the first time in a long time, I felt alive, thinking about spending the night in a house with a ghost. So they told me, okay, whatever, it's your choice. So they all drove me to this house. It's on the outskirts of Manuel Doblado, on the outskirts of town. And we drive through town, and we're going further and further, and the lights are getting more and more seldom out into the dark outskirts. And I'm starting to think maybe this wasn't the best idea. And we get to this house, really remote out there. It's a house, just a 2-bedroom house. It's on a bigger property. It's got a lot next to it. And it's all surrounded by a tall cement wall. And we got out there and they showed me in and they said, "Now, David, we only have one key, so we need to lock you in here. So you're just going to have to be locked in all night. We'll come pick you up in the morning. But don't worry about safety issues, because up on the roof, there's the dogs. The dogs live on the roof of the house. This is common. A lot of people will have dogs that live on the roof of a building and bring food up to them. They take good care of them. The dogs are okay. Don't worry about the dogs. But they live on the roof, and those dogs, if anybody comes, a thief or something, the dogs will bark. So you'll be safe, David. So have a good night. We'll see you later." And they left me there, and then they locked the door to the front of the property, and I was there by myself. And so I went inside, checked out the bedroom. It was just a bedroom and an adjacent kitchen, which is where they heard that furniture moving around, sliding around the floor. So I went into the bedroom and I looked around, just got the feel for the place. And I noticed there were just 2 little beds. It's a pretty simple room, and there's a dresser over against the wall. And I went over, I looked at the dresser. I saw that on the dresser, there was a Jehovah's Witness Bible, and then there was an evangelical pamphlet, and then there was a Catholic crucifix. So I thought, okay, I'm covered by a lot of different religions. I should be good here. I'm feeling good. But then I noticed there's a mirror on the dresser. Now, I don't like sleeping with mirrors. I have a thing with Bloody Mary. Some of you have heard me tell stories about Bloody Mary. I grew up hearing about Bloody Mary. She's going to come through the mirror in the dark. So I took off my leather jacket and I covered up the mirror with it. So, because Bloody Mary, you're not going to get me on that front. She's not coming through tonight. And then I just sat on the bed, and I sat there and I took out my journal and I started taking notes. And I just started writing about the place and thinking about my life and thinking about this woman who had left me. And And I was sitting there thinking, you know what, this place is haunted. My life is haunted. I started writing more bad poetry to myself. My life is haunted by the ghost of who I thought she was, because I was already starting to realize she wasn't this person I had idealized. Nobody is. Nobody is a perfect human. And I was writing all about that. And as I'm sitting there, all totally quiet, I heard a noise, and I swear this is true. I heard a noise from the mirror on that dresser. Ding! Like it sounded like somebody had flicked it with their finger, or like they'd thrown a little pebble at it. I looked at the mirror. There's no reason for it to have made that noise. And I heard the dogs up on the roof. They're starting to kind of run back and forth, and they're barking a little. I said, okay, I'm just not going to worry about it. I'm just going to sit here and keep writing. I kept on writing, journaling, writing more bad poetry about I'm haunted by the ghost of this woman who never was anyway. And I'm sitting there a while longer, and then I hear the roof dogs, and they all start barking like crazy. They all just start barking. They're going nuts. And I went outside, and I stood on that lot inside the property, and all three of the roof dogs, they're at the edge of the roof, and they're barking, and they're all staring at this one spot on the ground. And then they look at me, barking, like begging me, come on, help us out. And then they look back at this spot, and there's nothing there. They're all three of them, they're seeing something, but I didn't see anything. So I said, I think it's time to call it a night. And I went inside, I went to bed. I didn't sleep well. I had terrible nightmares, probably the power of suggestion. But then I woke up, and the light was coming in through the windows. I'd made it through the night in the haunted house. And I was already feeling better. I was even feeling like I had started to exorcise the ghost of that woman who had dumped me. I was really feeling like I turned over a new leaf. Then I hear this knocking on the front iron door of the property, and I went, and they opened it up with the key, and my friends came in, and they said, you made it, you survived. I did, I felt great. And I went, they said, what happened, how'd it go? And I told them, I said, nothing much happened. I told them about that noise, bing, from the mirror. And I said, I don't know why the mirror made that noise, but there's got to be an explanation. And I told them how all three of the dogs were standing at the edge of the roof barking, and they were all looking at something that I couldn't see. And then Angel said, wait, what did you say, David? Yeah, I said, all three dogs were at the edge of the roof. I said, David, there's only 2 dogs up there. There used to be 3 dogs up there. There were 3 dogs. The third one was the puppy of the other 2, but that dog just died 3 days ago. We buried that dog. There's only 2 dogs up there. They asked me to describe the dogs. I said, I saw all 3 of them. There's 2 tall, skinny ones and 1 short one with fluffy white hair, little patch over his eye. They said, yeah, that's the one that died. And I went back inside and I looked up, and sure enough, there was only 2 dogs up there. So that was the ghost dog I saw at that haunted house in Mexico. And ever since then, I really did exorcise that woman from my life. And I'm happy to say now that 10 years later, I'm with a woman who has all of the real qualities that I had imagined in my head about that other woman who caused so much heartbreak. So the haunting is over, and I haven't been haunted by the woman, and I haven't been haunted by the roof dog either. Ay, de mi llorona, llorona, llévame al río. Tápame con tu rebozo, llorona, porque me muero de frío. Tápame con tu rebozo, llorona, porque me muero de frío. Thank you.
Wow, David. I saw you tell at the San Francisco Free Folk Festival. You were on a panel of Southern California tellers, and I remember that one quite fondly too. I think when you start a story with the fact that you were willing to join a cartel, you know that all bets are off in the story. And of course, you don't want to stay in that house. The challenge is given. And then you, with your eyebrow raising, brokenhearted, slumped in a tequila haze, you were the man for the job to rise to that challenge. That was absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much. I want to acknowledge someone who's been working behind the scenes tonight. His name is Andrew Loafer. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Is it Loafer or Loafer?
It's Lawfer. Yes, thank you.
Loafer, Andrew Loafer. Thank you. And Andrew has been doing all of the tech. He's been spotlighting the tellers as they take the Genre Tales stage. And I just thought I'd say a few words about him, starting with the fact that he is the president of the Sacramento Storytellers Guild. He's also published a book called Papa Lawfer's Stories, Positive Reflections of Life in America. And that's a collection of brief single-page stories about his life experiences. And of course, he tells stories that are adapted from this on the stage. Favorite Halloween candy by our tech guru tonight is candy corn, those little orange, yellow, and white triangles. I think you shared that with Sharon. No, that was, yes, Sharon, when the chocolate ran out, though. And of course, Andrew can't resist him, and it said yum in his answer. But Andrew, thank you for a really smooth and quite masterful job. It's been really nice
Thank you.
having you do this event for us.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure.
Yeah. I'm going to pass the stage over to Ed with his new nickname, Ed Crab Cakes Lewis. I'm hoping that one sticks, but I know Ed has some announcements and he may invite others up to share some upcoming events as well.